Cursed by the gold gods in Bethany, we are four souls destined to review the 1001 movies,
albums,
booze, songs,
and TV shows you must consume before you die. Until then, we are the Immortals. And this is episode 133.
Cool.
That's an okay number.
There's nothing particularly interesting.
I need something more enthusiastic here. We're
might be
starting the
prime.
show off.
I mean, I'm excited about the fact that we're recording stuff.
Yeah? That's true.
Doesn't sound like it.
I mean, I don't have to sound excited to be excited.
It's an audio medium.
I'm
Well,
sad.
Hey,
I'm
audience.
sad because this is
I'm
the
excited.
first episode where there hasn't been like a bunch of numbers facts at the beginning.
You know,
So
JC, if that matters to you, we can bring that back. No one
just-
36, it is 3P, which is my apartment number.
that
beautiful.
might win as worst number fact.
There's only one in base 36.
That's a bad number fact. That's a very bad number fact. I like it.
Yes. Going strong.
Now they know how to find you, Pedro.
Yep, it's true.
I didn't say the rest of my address.
That's the next week.
No.
It's next week's
absolutely
number,
not.
You live at 134 something.
Ooh.
In Austria, 133 is the phone number for the police.
Oh.
Did you just Google 133 facts?
I mean,
I
I
did.
think we all did.
No.
No, I'm focused on
No.
the shit we're covering today, which is the 226 entries of all these lists. But first, I'm Austin.
Oh, I'm Sarah.
I'm JC.
And I'm Pedro.
So like I said, we're here to talk about the 226 entries of all those lists, and they are the following things. JC, what is the movie?
Los Olvidados. Or The Young and the Damned.
Oh, is that the title? That's cool.
That's the English title.
Yeah.
The album is Histoire de Melody Nelson by Serge Gainsbourg.
The song is I'd Rather Go Blind by Etta James.
And the television show is Saturday Night Live. Before we get to any of that, we're going to do a little segment called Off the List to learn what we've all been watching lately. JC, do you want to start?
Yes, I'd love to start.
What did you watch this week?
So, off the list this week is just a testament to the things that I'm getting into long after everyone else has gotten into them. I just finished season 2 of BoJack Horseman.
In the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. I'm BoJack the Horseman, BoJack the Horseman, don't act like you don't know. And I'm trying to hold on to my past. It's been so long, I don't think I'm gonna last. I guess I'm just trying to make you understand that I'm more than a man, or I'm more man than a horse.
I feel like when I watch that show, I'm laughing, and then all of a sudden, someone breaks into my apartment and beats me to death with a hammer. That's how that show makes me feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good. It's very good. I like thinking about what animal I would be if I was on that show. I really think that possibly it would be a pigeon of some sort. And that's what I have to contribute. It's a very good show. Everyone knows this already, but just signaling to the greater universe that I am indeed hip with the BoJack.
I can't finish it. Like, what you just described is totally correct, and I can't, like, I was like, oh no, this is too many feelings. Like, I can't do this. This is
I literally feel the same way after watching it as I used to feel the summer that I watched all of Breaking Bad in like 2 months. Like, I would watch it and I'd be like, I'm never going to watch this again because it hurts.
I feel the same way after watching an episode of BoJack Horseman that I do after, like, having a therapy session after a depressive breakdown. Like, it's not good for me. Like, that show has too many feelings for me.
Yes.
It's
Get it out of
obviously
here.
all Aaron Paul's fault.
Not wrong.
He's in
Oh,
both.
right. He's the link.
Right, yeah.
Keep in mind, this is also a show that has, for a brief moment, Patton Oswalt playing a penguin who works at Penguin Books.
Well, yeah.
Which is
I
Where
like
else
that
would
part.
wonderful.
It is the saddest, silliest show. ever made, and it's wonderful, and you're only going to get to better seasons because more bad things happen. Peter, what did you
Great.
watch the past week?
I watched the fantastic movie Blood Diner.
Ah, hello, fellow food lovers. I'm Phil Mignon, world-famous gourmet. In my travels, I've sampled some of the most exquisite foods the world has to offer. That's why they've asked me to tell you all about a charming new eatery located right downtown. As, you can see, the atmosphere is lovely. But, of course, the finest attribute of this quaint cafe is the marvelous cuisine.
By the way, what is the special ingredient in the Tuesday surprise?
Well, if I told you that, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore, would it?
They're, mouth-watering specialties. Will have you, as they say, licking your lips. Only the freshest natural ingredients are selected.
The first ingredients we need are 2 stomachs from a couple of tramps.
For use in their carefully guarded recipes.
I'd give my right arm for that secret recipe.
Yes, the chef puts a bit of himself into every succulent dish. Oh, and he's always pleased to serve you to your friends. Shouldn't that be serve you and your friends? No. Your gracious hostess will direct you to your table, where you will dine as if there's no tomorrow. So, breeze on down and don't let anything stand in your way. This Epicurean haven is called Blood Diner.
Okay.
Yes.
So, the other day, I was going to go with you a thing. I did not go with you that thing.
No.
And he spent the rest of the night texting me about how I should have seen Blood Diner.
Yes.
This is now your moment
Yes.
on the air
Mhm.
to pitch me
Yes.
why I should watch a film entitled Blood Diner.
Well, I don't want to spoil it.
So are we at an impasse here?
Yeah.
No, Blood Diner is a comedy horror film. Came out in '87. It follows these 2 brothers who
Just 2
run
brothers?
Well, no, not just 2 brothers. There's
Oh, okay.
a 3rd actor. These 2 brothers own a health food joint, a diner. They witnessed their Uncle Anwar getting murdered in the beginning. He was a serial killer who was very nice to them, gave them a couple of amulets, and then ran out to confront the police and blow them to bits.
I'm sorry, what are you not spoiling?
That's just the first, 15 minutes.
Okay.
Oh boy.
10 minutes.
Oh my
and then
god.
hilarity ensues as they try to do things involving blood. A lot of blood.
At a diner?
In a diner.
Well, at least it's descriptive.
Sort of, yeah. It is hilarious, wonderful. I love it.
Have you seen it twice now?
Yes. Once last year, it was October at some point. Twice, both in the same month. No, same month, separated by a year. At the same place for the same sort of event. It was great.
Cool.
Yep,
I will one day watch Blood Diner, probably.
please do.
You just have to comment on his Facebook next year when he gives the list of list
Oh,
out horror
shit,
movies. Just
yeah.
be the first commenter.
Peter, when's the last time you signed on to Facebook?
Make
3 weeks ago? 3 or 4 weeks ago?
remind me, and I'll make him do it.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Long-term play there.
Mm-hmm.
Not afraid of that at all.
Cool.
Sarah, what do you watch?
Well, so I think someone's already said this, but it's literally all I watched this week. The Good Place is a really good show.
So who's in the bad place that would shock me?
Well, Mozart, Picasso, Elvis, basically every artist ever. Every U.S. president except Lincoln.
That sounds about right. What about Florence Nightingale?
That was close, but no, she didn't make it.
wow, all those amazing people down there, it just seems so hard to believe.
Again, it's an incredibly selective system. Most people don't make it here. But you, a lawyer who got innocent people off death row, you're special, Eleanor. And by the way, welcome to your new home.
It's like a really, really good show. Like, it's probably the best show about the concept of what it is to be a good person that has ever been in a television show. I have a lot of feelings about it. I've recently gotten into the podcast where they talk to various members of the cast, and one of the things they ask of them is, what do you think it means to be a good person, and what do you think happens after we die? Which are, like, some delightfully intense questions to ask, like, Kristen Bell. And it's very good. And everyone, if you haven't watched it, like, you really should. And I'm not going to say anything else.
It's so good.
Oh, you watch it too?
Yes. I'm not up to date on this season. Like, I've seen the first couple of episodes, but I love that show.
But you finished season 1,
so
right?
good. Yes, seasons 1 and 2.
Okay, good.
It's so good. Everyone in that cast is so good.
Yes.
I love everyone. Everyone's super attractive also.
Yes.
It's just, there's a lot happening, and it's great.
In a show that has basically a plot twist every episode, I feel I can say this spoiler. We learned last week, or a couple weeks ago when this airs, that Chidi is secretly ripped.
So ripped.
So everyone is definitely attractive, including the moral philosopher professor guy.
I mean, didn't we already know he was hot? Didn't they talk about that in the first season?
You're totally right. It is, yes. It's mentioned in a season 1 episode, but not shown. Eleanor's like, he's surprisingly ripped. And
they make him take off the shirt this episode.
And he is indeed very ripped.
I definitely just... This is a testament to what time it is. I just Googled Chidi is hot. Because I was like, I know there's a part in the first season. I'm just going to let it go.
Shown an image of him standing in sprinklers being hot?
I'm pulling up a picture for Pedro.
I'm pulling up my own picture. I know how to Google.
Well, I don't want you to Google what happens in the show.
Oh, okay.
Because Pedro's on season 2.
Oh, yeah.
I've not yet started season 2.
Oh.
I'm about to, at some point.
Pedro's now seen a photo.
Yeah, he's really built.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho.
Good, I'm glad that's what we talked about the Good Place.
My off-the-list pick this week is a independent horror film I watched during the Halloween season. It is called Spring. It's a 2014 movie that is hysterically up my alley, which is it's an indie film that is mostly around people talking about their feelings. And it's also a romantic comedy. It's really kind of focused on these character interactions while also having a secret horror element that is teased throughout the movie. And then when they do show their cards, it is insanely clever and then makes the whole thing more poignant.
I've been seeing this girl. She's really pretty, but she gives me some doubts. You're the most attractive person I've ever seen. But that doesn't outweigh that you might be a mental patient, and I gotta make sure you're the kind of crazy I can deal with.
No. I'm a bunch of confusing biochemistry and some crazy hormones.
Let's see if the yank can keep up, mate.
I don't think you're ready for where this is going.
Explain it to me.
Really like the movie. Same guys who made this made one of the best films of this year called The Endless.
Oh, The Endless is really good.
Which is another like low budget, like sci-fi, really good movie. That one's more up Sarah's alley of
so good.
Cults.
Always cults. I'll watch anything that has cults in it. Cults.
Oh, I thought you said Colts, like the Colts football team.
No, because I'm not.
And
from
I was
Indiana.
like,
Indiana
what?
is a garbage state.
Whoa!
I think like half our listeners are from Indiana.
Sorry, guys.
Including 3 of your co-hosts.
Oh, that I'm aware of.
At one point it was
Oh, I don't
4,
give a
5?
shit.
Everyone who's ever
There we
co-hosted this
go.
with you.
JC understands.
I was just there.
Pedro, you went to IU for 5 years. How many sport events did you go to?
What?
Did you go to...
I went to 45 minutes of The women's low 500.
Okay.
That's
on purpose?
Yes.
Or do you just get lost?
No, on purpose.
Okay.
I'd never been. I already missed the men's. I felt
When I visited you one time at IU for Level 5, and I mentioned that this is an actual event that was even depicted in a movie, you had no idea what this was.
No.
Okay.
I knew it was a bike race. I don't know what the movie you were talking about was.
Breaking
I still
Away.
haven't seen it.
Breaking Away.
Yeah, we should stop.
We should
All
probably
right.
talk about the movie or whatever.
That's true. Breaking Away is a 1979 film starring
Oh my God, I'm getting
Quaid. All right, fine. We'll talk about the actual.
I'm gonna
stuff.
be silent until we get back on track.
How many? I forget who else is in Breaking Away.
Oh my God.
He's got Dennis Quaid, right?
Oh my
That's
God.
other people.
I will hang the fuck up.
In terms of Indiana sports movies, it is under Hoosiers and
Yeah,
above Rudy.
Literally, no one cares. Literally, no one cares. You cannot pay people to care. No one cares.
I'm on their side.
Thank you.
Fine, let's talk about a more optimistic topic. JC, what movie did we watch this week?
Los Olvidados.
Celebramos los 60 años de su estreno con una copia restaurada por la Filmoteca de la UNAM, con el respaldo financiero de la División Fílmica de Televisa.
Piedad, piedad para un pobre ciego.
Los Olvidados is a film that's directed by Luis Bunuel, and it is a film that chronicles a group of children in Mexico City who are living on the streets, and it chronicles two of them in particular. One is named Pedro, and
Woo,
he
yep.
is
Don't woo yet.
Pedro's the little jerk, right?
What?
Yeah.
No.
That bad?
No, the one who has a mom who like cares about him, right? That's Pedro.
Yeah,
that is Pedro.
Yeah, Pedro's the jerk.
Pedro is like younger and newer to the streets, and then there's Haibo, who is like an older child who escapes from reform school and comes back to lead the children as a gang, and leads them in lots of bad things. And that's a short synopsis of the film.
Yeah, of those two characters, one of those is more jerkish. I'll give you a hint. It's the murderer.
No, but Pedro's just a little jerk.
Yeah, I hated that kid.
Yeah, Pedro sucks.
I was like, fuck you, your mom's right, get out.
I mean,
really?
Holy shit,
wait,
guys.
I really didn't. Wow, that's interesting. No, I had a lot of empathy for Pedro.
Yeah,
no, I did too. I guess like
movie.
He was a jerk, but he was younger.
He was sorry?
He was like, he was newer, it seemed,
Yeah.
to like figuring that shit out. And so, anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, he just made me sad because he was doing the thing that you do when you're 12, which is to make really, 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 really bad choices. Because ultimately, like, he's the only person regularly depicted in the film as having a different choice. That, like, he couldn't, like, and he keeps making the bad choice. It's like every time he comes home, he like there's a way that he could like, you know, he keeps antagonizing his mom, which like again like he's 13. I'm not like judging the kid, like if even like he's a kid, but like it's just I mean I worked with a lot of like kids that age in gangs, and it's just. It's fundamentally tragic and also like weirdly infuriating because there's a part of you that just wants to shake them, but also like that doesn't work, and so it's all just very frustrating.
Well,
no, go ahead, Asta. Sorry.
Well, I just want to kind of just kind of set the groundwork for what kind of movie this is for those people who haven't seen this. Like this is a story about children, but it is not. Breaking Away.
It's not a story about children, though. It's a story about
extreme poverty.
Extreme poverty in Mexico City, actually, is where this takes place, which now is still one of like the
Poorest.
10 biggest cities,
It's
but
one of-
still like super poor.
I think it actually is possibly like second or third. Like it's really one of the biggest cities. I think after Sao Paulo and maybe
It's
Shanghai.
huge.
It's very large.
I have been there, and it is really large. It is super big. It's like 10 Bostons put together.
Yeah.
It's enormous.
JC's lives in Boston, so that's
Oh,
her.
that makes-
That's a
yeah,
point of
that
reference
makes
for
sense,
size.
And all these kids are, either homeless, or their homes are so dysfunctional as to basically just be homeless.
And it's worth noting that, like, JC mentioned this, directed by Louis Bunuel, and he is known for his very surrealist films, and we've actually covered 2 films of his on the podcast so far. Yep, Pedro just whispered 2 to me.
With a computer.
Is it one of them? Is he the guy who does the eye, the cut eye?
Yes, that was. We have not covered that one yet, so don't worry. That's Un Chin Adalo, pronounced correctly.
One. Not looking forward to it.
It is only 12 minutes long, so.
Yeah, but the eye is.
Oh yeah, the eye's real bad.
Oh god.
But we covered one of his surrealist films back in episode 65 called The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie.
Oh, that's right.
And then we covered the other one is really kind of, and the other film we covered of his, we covered back on episode 16, which was a short film of his called Las Verdes, which is also, it's a lot closer to this, which is like, instead of being like his surrealist, like, Discreet Charm is about people who go from dinner to dinner but never actually have any food. Las Verdes and this is, poverty is horrendous.
Yeah.
And that was a 30-minute short that's literally translated to Life Without Bread. And this, whereas that was just like a true like documentation, this puts you into characters' lives and is a lot more morally complex. Just like,
I mean, yeah.
Fuck, everything's terrible.
Like, Las Verdes is one of the first documentaries. Like, it's a real documentary, right? I mean, like, it's not, whereas this is fiction.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I didn't remember that was the other movie that we had covered of his, but, like, now that I hear it, I'm like, oh, of course it was, yeah.
And, yeah, I saw this in theaters a couple years ago. Because, like, it was, like, one of the last ones I haven't seen. Like, no, the major ones. I'm sure I'm missing still a bunch.
Well, we'll get to it later, but there's an alternate ending to this movie, and I'm wondering if you saw that.
No, it was not. That was not in there. This was the original version that was playing the Gene Siskel, and I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah,
I always just kind of assume it's a surrealist one by him, and it is just so. It's unpleasant in a way that I'm really glad that it isn't a longer film. This is 75 minutes and feels rough. Is it just me, or did you guys have trouble with it?
I mean, I come from a weird background because I've worked with, like, kids who are very much like street kids who live in the streets and commit crimes and are gang kids, and so it rang very true to me. Like, I mean, particularly Pedro, I think the character, but all of them. I mean, of the sort of, like, hopelessness and the way that the kids build community, but also, like, the brutality of that community that they've built without any guidance. I mean, like, one of the first shots of the movie is, like, a clearly, like, developmentally disabled kid being, like, used like a bull in like a ring with like a, red sheet, and like it. Like, but they have a community. It's just crappy. And that, like, so I guess it didn't, because I have that experience, it wasn't rough for me to watch, but I mean, it's rough stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I felt the same way. Like, to me, it was interesting because, like, I've never seen a Bunuel before, and I was pretty sure he was the eye guy. And to me, like, it didn't feel super, I guess, like, when I was watching it, it never really felt surreal to me. Like, it felt so grounded in what, like, the truth of that experience must be like, that I felt, even in, like, the moment, like, I think the part of the movie that I think I was, like, spellbound by the most was when Pedro is dreaming. That sequence, and he's dreaming about his mom, and his mom brings him the meat, and then that boy that Haibo kills is under his bed, and he takes the meat away from him. Even that to me felt very much like, if I was a 12-year-old child, like, this was the type of dream I would be having about this. Like, it was just the right amount of the surrealism of the dream world, but also, like, the actual things that he's struggling with all the time. When I was watching it, it made me feel like it must have been such a important film. Like, I'm sure, like, I think I was reading that, like, when it was put out, that, like, it was, like, kind of panned or something like that. But I just, like, can't imagine what it would be like to see this type of thing on screen, which is, like, we're and thinking about, like, the types of stories that, like, the screen has probably been reserved for in the past. Like, we're not telling stories about street kids. But then, like, he's doing that. And that, to me, felt really significant.
It's really interesting to see how kind of countries, like, we're making films this time, because this is from the 50s. And we watched Lestrada a couple weeks ago, and that was from the 50s. And
Sorry, go ahead.
And these are just kind of major moments where you're seeing lots of countries really focus on realism. And we talked about how, like, Italy is very big into the neorealism. This is into the same kind of realism setting, whereas, you know, America went very broad.
Yeah, we don't like our reality.
No, we don't.
It wasn't really until the late 60s, 70s did the Hollywood system basically break down and show, like, you know, people bleed on screen.
The movie this reminded me of was 400 Blows, which is, I'm not sure when exactly 400 Blows is, but it's not super far from this.
It's early 60s.
Yeah, and it's like a similar kind of, I mean, it's not, it's a similar kind of movie in that it has the same perspective, I feel like, of the way that the kids are filmed and the sort of tenderness with which they're treated and, like, the respect with which they're treated was really reminiscent for me. And
it's recognizing that childhood is not just, like, difficult. It's not like, oh, you get bullied at school. It's like it feels like survival. Yeah. And this is a case where it is very literal in that regard. But it's kind of there's a danger to it, which again is feels dumb to say because people do die in this movie. But there's a feeling of that throughout. The danger isn't, like, out of nowhere in this movie.
Sarah, I think what you said is so important. I think that was something. I think that's why the film works the way it does. Is, like, you can tell, like, from the point of view of the creator that it doesn't come from this place of, like, judgment.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, like, here is their reality. And, like, you can see that, like, even when Pedro is trying to make good choices, like, everything is stacked up and there's no safety net. And in many ways, like, these children have, like, learned to be cruel, and they have also learned that, like, they have to do what they have to do to survive. And it never comes. It reminded me of this, there's, like, this famous photojournalist named Mary Ellen Mark, and she took photographs of street kids in Seattle. And I think there's a documentary about it called Streetwise, but, like, she was, like, getting to know, like, young sex workers who were, like, 13 years old and taking pictures of them. And in the pictures, like, these young people are, like, it's not like, oh, look at them, they're so sad, or, like, God, like, can you believe that they would do this? But it's just, like, who they are, and they have, like, agency and autonomy in those photos. And it's really, and, like, that to me is, like, just so important. And I felt the same way when I was watching this. Like, here's their reality and their truth.
And, like, what's sad to me about it is that, like, this is just a very real thing. Like, I mean, I know these kids in America, and by the way, these kids shouldn't exist in America. Like, this is a world of extreme poverty, which, like, any sane, rich, industrialized nation should be able to prevent among its citizens. I just want to flag that for the record. But it is. I mean, like, there's the sort of the fundamental. I liked about Pedro that it's not that the movie wants you to think that his choices are reasonable. Like, that's not really it. It's that it wants you to go, oh yeah, like, I get why you did that. You're an idiot, but I get why you did that. Like, not idiot, like you're dumb, but, like, you're, like, that was a really bad idea.
In the beginning, when he was, like, trying to come home just because he was hungry,
right.
I literally thought he was just an idiot. Like, at that point, I'm like,
that's like,
no.
And you get to this point with him where you're like, oh wait, actually you're past the point with your mom of no return. Like, there's not actually a path back for you, and she doesn't know how to give you a path back, and you don't know how to take one, and it's all just fucked. And it's sad.
I mean, it's because how old is this kid, really? He's like, what,
12.
10, 12.
Yeah.
So add 14, that makes Mom 26.
Yeah.
She was 14 years old when she had Pedro.
Oh, guys, this is getting too real.
Probably, right? That's what she said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what she says.
And she doesn't have time. If he's going to be a dick and do a bunch of stuff, then she's got 2 or 3 other kids to take care of.
And you get the feeling that she thinks she's parenting well. I mean, she's just like, dude, you can't do that. You can't become like this. You have another option. If you're like the first night that she doesn't give him food, like it's very much like a sort of more normal punishment of like, oh, you're hanging out with these jerks who say that they can provide for you. Natural consequence, like, sorry, you don't get dinner. Like, they said they could buy you dinner. Like, they said they could provide for you. Like, well, where's their dinner? And it's just like, in that moment, their relationship breaks because he really is really hungry. And he is, like, doesn't feel loved and bolts. And, like, from then on, it's just...
After stealing food.
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, he does a dumb. And after that, I say that with great love. But I mean, like, when I say does a dumb, I mean, like, kids make kid decisions. And from then on, it's like, every time he comes back, there's this wound that hasn't been healed between them. And it's just, like, a cycle of...
But he tried so hard.
I know.
So many times.
I know, but it's like,
you
can't fix it. Like, it's like something, like, and it's not, well, and it's not even that they can't, it's that they didn't. Like, you know, like, there's like, if somebody had made a different choice, if somebody had softened for a second, but it didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and...
I mean, like...
Cool.
If he had just brought that first paycheck home from the blacksmith,
yeah,
I think that could have helped everything. But, you know, older, stronger, manipulative murderer does things.
And I just, like, I loved it as a portrait of, like, no one here is, between him and his mom, like, neither of them is a villain. Both of them really are trying. I think after that first moment, like, Pedro's mostly trying to be a good son. Like, that is something he wants to do. And both of them, and she's trying to be a good mom. And they manage to try right past each other and completely fail.
Yeah.
And it's very sad.
But
it's very real.
But Bunuel does put proper villains in this.
Right.
So, I mean, there is judgment towards me. Obviously, this kid murderer who's the worst. But
kid. We say kid. This kid's like maybe 15, 16, like old enough to like know what he's doing.
Whoa.
Not,
he's still a child,
no,
Pedro.
Still a child, but like...
I'm sorry, the youth lawyer has some thoughts.
I have some thoughts about brain development.
Fair, but when
your brain is not developed until you're 25 years old, Pedro. That child is still a child, even though he's doing murder.
Well, and I
that is
think,
fair.
I think Bunuel knows that.
Is judging him, though.
Yes. Which, I mean, like, it's complicated. Like, there absolutely is a spectrum of culpability between a 9-year-old and a 15-year-old and a 15-year-old and an 18-year-old and an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old. I mean, you know, but...
They're 100%.
And certainly Bunuel is not being particularly sort of nuanced about this, and to him I think that 15-year-old is much closer to an adult. That is fair, which, like, whatever. Like, I'm not concerned about a movie in the 50s, like, not getting brain development.
I'm saying, like, I found him such a truly hateable person.
Yeah.
And as a leader of someone who is younger, he knows how to use his whatever he's got, intelligence, development, whatever, to his advantage against people that are vulnerable.
You know who else ends up being hateable? The blind guy.
Oh yeah, he sucks.
Because like first, like they're trying to rob this blind beggar guy, and you feel bad for him because he's being robbed by children. And they dress some Luslow girl, and the girl like has a knife ready because like isn't that right?
Yeah, that's real rough.
It almost seemed like it wasn't the first time.
No,
yeah,
like,
no.
She immediately
that's
had
hella
the
rough.
knife. She was ready.
Yeah,
he was going to shelter the other guy that I thought was Pedro for the longest time. I kept getting them too confused because they're same age, same build, same everything.
Easy, yeah.
And then,
Hey, poverty sucks, guys. Maybe we should make sure that everybody, you know, can eat and have somewhere safe to sleep.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid the really
I guess
horrible.
That's what I. Right. I guess that's what I kept coming back to is like, it was really hard for me, even though like this child was doing like some really shitty stuff. It was just like, I don't know. Like, I just kept coming back to like, well, what chance did he have? Like,
What the fuck else
what
is
did
he
you expect
supposed
him
to
to do? Yeah, like, I really don't know. And like, to me, like, none of those children exist in a vacuum. All of those children are like doing what they need to do to live. And that doesn't excuse like murder or
Right.
the other like horrible things that happen. But like Sarah said, like poverty is a thing. And like I think glossing over or being like, oh, like he could have made better choices. It's like, those are easy things to say when you're not hungry.
Well, and I mean, I think Bunuel very much, I mean, he frames that. Like, that's the
opening title.
The opening title is
these
like,
are all real people.
These are all real people. This is poverty.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Don't be like this. Don't let this happen. And I think like,
yes, that's true.
That framing really mattered to me because I think that it would have been easy for this to feel like a morality tale. And instead it's just a tragedy. And like, that's as it should be. This movie was rough for me. I watched it in the background of things and it still like was really rough. We shouldn't let this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I before we get to our superficial ratings, I guess like for a movie that is so rough, is this something that people should see, or is it like exploiting like tragedy?
Oh no, I think it's great.
Okay.
I think that it humanizes a group of people who are hard to humanize. And I think that's really important. I'm always for that.
It's kind of fucked up because they're kids. How's it supposed to be hard to humanize?
Well, ask all of the laws in America that allow us to incarcerate children as young as 7.
Yeah. That's messed up.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the ending at all?
Sure.
Yes,
Cool.
anyone who hasn't seen the ending, skip to the next section. See our hinge ratings on the website. But yeah, so we're going to talk about the ending. Pedro, tell us what happened, and then we're going to talk about what almost happened.
So, basically, this weird, like, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back thing, or actually, I guess, 2 steps forward, 1 step back for Pedro, culminates in him getting sent to juvenile correction, something or another, basically a school. Like, and you could argue that was the best thing for him. Mom did a good job saying, you know what, go to a school, even though I believe they thought, well, there's some complicated stuff there. Anyway, goes to a school. The guy gets entrusted with a task because the principal recognizes he just needs someone to have faith in him, trust him, whatever, which makes whole sense because that's what he's been doing the whole movie when he decided to not be a dick. Older Hybo sees him because he's afraid that he's going to spill his guts about the murder that was witnessed, that he witnessed Hybo committing, steals his money, and then it's just a whole thing of him going after him, trying to get his money back to get back to the principal and do the right thing. They fight. He admits to a crowd that he saw the murder and who did it. Blah, blah, blah. He gets killed by Hybo.
Pedro does.
He gets murdered.
Yep.
Very sad. His body is discovered by the grandfather and young woman we saw earlier. They don't want to get in trouble for it, so they literally dump him with the trash. And that's the end. Well, sort of. Hybo gets killed because Blind Man overheard the whole thing.
And that, to me, is like an incredible ending of it just being so...
Tragedy, and...
horrible. And, like, just when you kind of think Hybo can get any worse, kind of thing. I think it may have point clear. Not a fan of that guy.
No.
So, and that's an ending that is very strong within Bunuel's thesis.
Yeah.
But what else could have happened?
So the alternate ending is they confront each other. Like, they still get into a fight. Hybo still steals Pedro's money.
So this is an ending that is not in the movie, but it was forced to be filmed by...
It was forced to be filmed by the government? That's right.
That's fascinating.
But Bunuel wasn't like flipping a
like
coin.
It's
Yeah.
really off.
Well, yeah.
Basically, they fight, then Pedro ends up shoving Hybo off of whatever ledge they're on.
Mhm.
He dies. Hybo dies. So then he goes through, digs the money out of the pocket, and goes back to school.
Wow.
Do you not know this?
No, I had no idea.
I didn't either,
That's
yeah.
some fucked up shit.
Right? It's like, all right, now Pedro murdered, and he's cool. He's gonna fix his life forever.
That ending reminds me, like, of... It's a bit of an Oliver Twist kind of thing. Like, oh good, now the bad guy is done. No more difficult in poverty.
Yep.
Which they fixed it, guys. 50 pesos and a principal is all you need.
It is crazy that was even filmed. Honestly.
Yeah. And they found it, 10 years ago? Something like that?
It is available to be seen. This movie is actually pretty hard to find, which is why I went to go see it at the Gene Siskel. When we saw it because it's on YouTube. And
It's on YouTube, but without subtitles.
I didn't watch it on YouTube.
Or did you find subtitles?
I saw it with subtitles.
Oh yeah, I couldn't find subtitles, but I'm just a dummy.
I clicked on the link that you sent me. Us.
Yeah.
Oh, I searched for it separately as my phone.
But yeah, I think that is just a completely crazy, I'm really glad that this ending is the one that's connected to the film.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't a case where the real intent is on the bonus feature.
Yeah, no, it's good that that's a good thing.
And Pedro, who was the only surviving cast member, introduced it when they found it and put it back together.
Oh wow,
and screened it.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool, and even if the
ending's weird, right?
But that's just a cool thing.
This is really difficult. I would say I'm gonna give it a 4.8 because I felt like when I was watching it that it was really crucial.
I loved it. I loved it. I guess it wasn't it didn't change my life, which might say more about my life than it does about the film, but I'll give it a 4.4.
I agree. I liked it. I don't know, somehow it didn't make fireworks go off or anything like that. So it feels like a solid 4.5.
And I'll also give it a 4.4. Really, really good film by one of the masters of cinema. And we may see him again in the upcoming weeks. Tease. That also is surprising. What?
Are we doing the eye?
No, we're not doing the eye. You guys can look at our schedule.
No,
it's fine.
There is no schedule, Austin, and we roll numbers randomly every week.
Yes.
Am I supposed to come up with numbers still?
No.
Oh my god.
All right, now it's time for the album segment.
Jesus.
Right into that mic.
Yep.
Right into that mic. Fuck, no.
Whoa.
You're off.
Sorry.
That was...
I had to.
No, you didn't.
Whatever. I'm doing it.
What album did we hear this week, Sarah?
Ugh. We heard Histoire de Melody Nelson by Serge Gainsbourg.
Le soleil est rare et le bonheur aussi. L'amour s'égare au long de la vie. Le soleil est rare.
Histoire de Melody Nelson by Serge Gainsbourg is a 1971, as it is described in Wikipedia, semi-autobiographical memoir album by a sleazeball named Serge Gainsbourg. This album is gross and I hate it.
Before we get into all that, I have a
This is
curiosity
trash.
about you're pronouncing the title.
Histoire de Melody Nelson.
You always keep saying Nelson, the most American part. Is there no French?
No, because she's
Nelson?
she's American.
She's English.
Actually, I actually think that one of the only things that's interesting about I have a lot to say. Is
It always started on a positive note. What's your favorite part of this album?
This shit was terrible. It's
I
trash,
hate it.
and we don't have to pretend like there are redeeming qualities about it.
It makes me mad. It makes me mad that it is Well, okay. Can I just give my thing? Can I just do my thing?
Yeah.
Do it.
All
Do
right,
it.
I want to talk about Lolita, and I want to talk about
Yes, please.
a lot of things about Lolita, and here we go. All right. There was a book written in the 1950s by a guy named Vladimir Nabokov, one of the greatest novelists of the 20th century. He was genuinely one of the first people to, like, really pay attention to a weird and perverse human fascination, which is the male fascination with young, prepubescent, or, just post-pubescent girls. Vladimir Nabokov, genuinely not a pedophile, because a lot of people really have wanted him to be a pedophile and have looked for so long, and, like, he's not. Like, he's just a dude who had, like, a wife and a kid and, like, butterflies. He wrote this book called Lolita, and everybody read this book, and actually his wife has been... I recently read a book called The Real Lolita, which is by...
Sarah Wyman.
The book is fine.
Wait, real fast. Pedro, when did you first learn about the book Lolita?
Earlier today.
Which is insane, but we're just going to move past that. But the book, The Real Lolita, it's fine. It's not a great book, but it did give...
Worth reading, though.
Yeah, it's fun, but it did give a lot of background on Nabokov as well, and his wife, who was his partner throughout his writing, like, consistently expressed, particularly after Nabokov died, like, why does everyone keep talking about how captivating Humbert, the predator, is, and, like, lose Dolores, like, lose Lolita, who is in the middle of the book, and very much, like, part of Nabokov's focus of, like, Nabokov is talking about how, like, yes, Humbert is, like, interesting and an interesting character study, but, like, he's a monster. And friggin', I mean, it really is true that book sets off this wave of, like, oh, maybe it's okay to be a sexual predator. That, like, is the 60s, like, there's this really dark part of 60s and 70s, like, rock and roll that is, like, oh, but maybe I just read Lolita and decided that, like, I don't know, anything can be beautiful. And maybe Humbert's love for that 11-year-old was really beautiful, which is like, Jesus Christ, you missed the point. Like, I
feel right now I'm speaking for everyone listening to the podcast, going, "Oh God, I don't know how this is gonna tie in, but I'm really afraid."
This is called Histoire de Melody Nelson, otherwise known as The Story of Melody Nelson, about the singer hitting a 14-year-old girl named Melody Nelson on her bike with his car. She's fine, and then falling in love with her and having sex with her. So that's what this album's about.
It went all the way there?
Fuck yeah.
I mean, I heard the whole thing, but I didn't listen to the whole thing.
You didn't hear those sex noises?
Oh, shit!
Yeah.
I thought that was, like, crazy maniacal laughter of some sort.
Oh, it's definitely sex noises.
That was... Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer.
Yeah. I like tried to research a little bit about this because I could listen to a couple of tracks and then I was like, no. And the amount of accolades and shit this album has gotten, like Rolling Stone France or whatever is like, this is the 4th best album from the fucking country of France ever, is just living proof that, like, a white man can fucking sneeze and someone will try to catch his snot in a cup and give him an award for it.
That thing. Yes.
It is, like, not only is the content of this album gross and misogynist and all the things that Sarah really eloquently just said, it is not even remotely listenable.
No, it sucks.
Like, it's like not, it's like a man chanting over some rock riffs and, like, it's just not good. It's like barely music.
So I want to talk about, like, my experience listening to this album, and it is recorded in a WhatsApp conversation, is I started listening to it and I was like, I have never heard a human being sing who I was more like, he sounds, it's funny, the word I wanted to use is he sounds so dirty, but then I was like, that sounds like dirty talk. No, he sounds unwashed. He sounds greasy and unclean. And then, like, I'm listening to the French, because I speak French, and I hear, elle a 14 été et 15 automnes, which is, she had 14 summers and 15 autumns. And I was like, oh, I definitely heard that wrong. And I go and look it up, and I'm like, nope, I didn't. Nope, not a thing. Maybe it was the other way around. I don't really care.
It makes sense if you're born in autumn.
No,
It's
sorry,
possible.
it was
possible.
it was the other way around. I think she was born in summer, but whatever. I really don't care. She's 15.
Yeah.
And it was just that moment, and I sent this to our group chat of like, oh no, this is a Lolita album. Like, abort. This is not good. And this is like, it is, if it was one song, but like this is him being like, this is my artistic contribution, is a full concept album about how I'm fucking a 15-year-old. And like, it is one thing to be a rock star who fucked 15-year-olds, and that is one gross thing that is true. It is an even more gross thing to be like, my major artistic contribution to the world is an album about how I think it was reasonable to fuck a 15-year-old. Like, I hate everything about the existence of this album. I hate that, based on its accolades, I do understand why it's on the list, because it was like famous and quote unquote important. And I hate everything, and I hate men, and men are garbage, and also people are bad at reading Nabokov and should die in a fire.
Literally. So like, yes. And so I had not heard of this album. The reason I've heard of this artist is because of a song he wrote called Lemon Incest, which he recorded with his daughter.
Wait,
which
oh, no.
Wait, he made that song?
He made that song, which is a song. Yes, sorry.
No,
what are you trying to say?
This is just, I want you to keep describing this, but this is just the weirdest thing. Like, so I left my phone in the other room at work today, and I was talking with a coworker about a bunch of random stuff, and I mentioned at one point in this podcast that I watched the 4400 and then just lost my mind trying to make a timeline of what the fuck actually happened on that show. And then she said, I did a similar thing when I was a kid when I read Flowers in the Attic. And trying to understand the family tree. And then we talked about the family tree of Flowers in the Attic. And talked about like the worst like instances of incest. And
I totally made a Flowers in the Attic family tree as a child. That's amazing.
You have to in your brain because it is difficult to keep track of.
Pedro,
especially when you're getting into the second and third books, because there are children.
I definitely never read the second and third book. That's a lot.
But,
oh shit, no, I did.
But then from that, the rooms kind of talked about like the worst like uses of incest ever in pop culture, and she said, well, I was watching this YouTube video, and one of the worst songs ever made apparently is something called Lemon Incest. And then, honest to God, 5 minutes later, I walked back into my office where my phone was, and I see a message in WhatsApp saying, nope, Lolita album, abort. So the fact that it is the same guy from a song I never heard about until the same hour is, so... Sorry, that was a tangent to now have JC present.
Honestly, you sound like you were caught in a hurricane of pedophilia and incest, Austin. And I don't know what kind of city Chicago is, but you should move.
I was on the clock the whole time. But please tell the audience and Pedro what Lemon Incest is about.
Oh, this
so
is
Lemon
horrible.
Incest is a song that he recorded with his daughter that is talking about love between an adult and a child, and it has this gross double meaning because the people, like the characters in the song, it's a father and a daughter, which is the people who are singing the song.
It's not good.
And there's a music video, right, where they're
and I'm not fucking watching that shit.
I mean, I just looked at the album cover, and Pedro made the correct
it's gross.
Nope face.
Yes, it is so. It's just, I have so many feelings. This person made a whole concept album about this, and then 15 years later went that extra fucking mile, like just couldn't stop. Like, I'm going to record a song with my own daughter about this very same topic, and it's going to rise to number 2 on the fucking French singles chart, is just wild and
It's okay.
summarizes
By the way,
so much.
Any sirens you hear in the background is because we mentioned lemon incest too many times, and this is
Mhm.
just a protocol for Chicago.
I note that
We'll pause and explain this to the podcast
this
in a
is
second.
these are the kinds of things that mean that Wikipedia describes him as often regarded as one of the world's most influential popular musicians.
It is okay to let some things die and be lost to history.
That's fine with me.
Wait,
And this
JC, should we
is-
let the old things die?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, fuck everything.
We should let... I haven't seen it yet.
Hate everything.
That's fine. But this is like, the fact that this is, it makes me angry that this is included in these fucking tomes, these ancient texts. That's me flipping through them, ripping them out, that this is included. It's like, this is an important part of the canon. It isn't. It just isn't. It's barely music. It's gross.
And
it doesn't
sucks
give us
because
anything.
It's the reason it's interesting is because other gross dudes were like, ooh, look, you're talking about the love that doesn't speak its name. You're talking about how 15-year-old girls are hot and I want to fuck them. And I mean, like, I'm sorry, but like, that is literally the mood of the 60s and 70s. It's like, let's talk about how we all want to fuck our groupies and we're all fucking our groupies. And isn't it great to fuck our groupies? Because then we don't have to like have sex with somebody that we consider a person. Like, that's what this is. And it's gross and we can lose it to history. I will entertain briefly the idea that more talented artists, that the part of their legacy that does not involve songs about fucking groupies should be included in the canon. He is not that guy. Fuck this album.
I refuse to henge this because we shouldn't have to listen to it. That's where I refuse. You
Fair.
cannot.
We can give zeros.
Zeros is fine. You can zero it.
I don't even want to give it my consideration. But yes, I give it a 0.
Good.
Pedro, you like the album?
There were parts where musically I liked what I heard.
Holy shit, Pedro.
And I liked his voice when he wasn't talking but actually singing.
Wait.
But that is...
Jason,
I have to leave it at that.
Singing about what? Was it singing about how he wants to fuck a 15-year-old?
No. This is weirdly canon on this podcast that Pedro has, I think, listened to the lyrics
Pedro.
maybe 3 times the whole podcast.
Yeah. I heard him start talking like, greasy. That makes sense.
And you speak French.
I do speak French.
No, but
and then I heard the thing about the 14
and
summers
like,
and 15. I'm like, I think I read something about that. Oh, okay, yeah, that is.
There
okay.
it is.
Like, the whole album was just one melody riff that was just repeated over and over again.
Yeah,
interrupted by sex sounds, which I thought was, I was scooping shit while listening to this album.
That's appropriate. Wait, that makes me really happy.
I thought I heard Janice from Friends. It sounded like her cackle.
I get your point.
And I was like, what is this? Okay, whatever. I didn't like the album, most of the album. Like how, well, the subject matter, horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
The melody, not that interesting. The album itself, not a lot of progression. But there were some parts that I thought musically were fine and sounded nice. And his voice sounded like a very standard French singing voice. But now I'm starting to understand that I can't trust anything about
I mean, I feel like
French performance.
Look, if somebody had made this album and it was like the best piece of music of all time, we'd have a dilemma. You know what I mean? But like,
there's not.
I really don't even think it's that. Yeah. I mean, like, it's weird. I will say this. If I were going to make an 1001 album list of my own, it is possible that something like this should be included with a note of, like, this is what's gross about music history.
That should not be on the
like Birth of a
1001
Nation.
albums.
Like Birth of a Nation.
Yeah, but Birth of a
I'm not
Nation
saying that
was
this
like a technical achievement that never been done. In
Yeah,
history.
but this guy was a musician that did a whole bunch of shit.
And I will say, because of that weird, like, part of it that's like, maybe this is historically irrelevant, 0.5. That's it.
JC?
I refuse to henge this.
I'm giving this a 0 asterisk.
That makes sense.
Pedro?
1.
And I'm afraid of this album, so I'm giving it a 0.
You're afraid of it?
Yeah.
That's not a good emotion to have about
My
it.
only
Call that
only thing
out.
on the pro column was I like the language of French.
I like the way that Sarah said the album title.
Honey, I can speak
more
French
than
too whenever.
more than anything that I heard. In the 10 minutes I allowed myself to listen to it before vomiting.
Like, I speak French. I can just, like, say stuff in French.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Maybe you guys should do that later. Sounds
Good.
nice.
Good.
Just read a cookbook to each other.
Cool. There's other things to read, but yeah, cookbooks are fun too. Anywho, that was the album. If any of you listen to it after this segment, that's on you.
No, honestly, tell us though what you think, because
I mean, like,
it's important for something like this.
if you didn't speak any French and didn't look up what it was called, you might actually think this is tolerable, and you'd be wrong.
Yeah.
No, but we've heard French albums. I always thought they were like prettier. It did sound like
sucks.
Nick Nolte's mugshot.
It does.
It totally did.
Nick Nolte's mugshot that got dropped in some popcorn grease on a movie theater floor.
Yeah.
And then, like, jizzed on. Like, it's gross. It's
Ugh.
gross. It's gross.
Okay.
Sorry, but it's gross.
We have the explicit label on iTunes. Pedro.
Yes.
It is up to you to redeem this show. What song do we hear this week?
We heard I'd Rather Go Blind by Etta James.
Something told me it was over. When I saw you and her talking, something deep down in my soul said, cry, girl.
I'd Rather Go Blind is a song first performed by Etta James, written by Ellington Jordan, who I do not know, co-created by Billy Foster. Came out in '68,
Okay.
and it's a great song.
It is a great song.
It's
that's great.
a lot of fun. It's really short.
Yeah.
Media says it's R&B, rock, soul, blues. I guess that all makes sense.
God damn it, Pedro.
I don't know
You can't
what much to
just
say
start. You can't just
about
start at the top of the Wikipedia page.
I mean, that's usually where it begins.
I know.
No, the song, it's great. She has a fantastic voice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's Etta Fitzgerald. She's awesome.
It's
Etta James. Sorry.
Etta James.
It's Etta James. She's awesome.
She's
That's
awesome.
saying it.
No, god damn it.
Very tormented life as a kid.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Real bad. Abused by her, not father, but like foster father, who would very often get like hammered and rip her out of bed to force her to sing for his friends.
What the fuck is wrong with this episode?
Yeah, this is a bad episode full of bad things.
Her first,
I was gonna say this song was like the bright spot of
Yeah.
the things I had to review.
Yeah, bummer.
And Pedro is really going for it.
I'm topical, guys.
Yep.
We're gonna have some highlights next time. But also, we talk about like Billy Crystal blackface. So
I
like,
think like
Do we have to?
yeah, I brought it up.
No, we do.
her first like major physical abuse, and I think it's all
Jesus
physical, not
Christ!
sexual. Her voice coach,
What is
who was
happening?
Baptist priest, I think.
Oh,
something,
no.
would like punch her in the chest to teach her that singing comes from the gut.
Oof.
Like whenever she messed up, and
Mm.
apparently that's one of the reasons or one of the things they credit for her having an unusually strong voice as a young child.
I mean, let's be clear.
the
My voice teacher held me by the stomach and like the diaphragm to
Mhm.
teach me about how like broad your diaphragm can spread. That was very effective for me. You know what you don't have to do? Punch children.
Yep.
Okay,
There's no.
It's a bummer.
Yeah.
the song's
Yeah.
good.
The
It's
song
not
Focus
great, don't get me
on
wrong.
the
she became.
The song is really Lovely. When I listened to it and I Googled the lyrics.
Mhm.
The first thing that popped up was something I didn't know existed, but a clip from a movie called Cadillac Records.
Did you watch it? 'Cause I did.
I watched the clip
Yeah.
in which Beyonce cries while singing the song to Adrian Brody.
So yeah, this is a movie that nobody saw.
Wild.
Beyonce sings it incredibly well.
Yes.
But
to Adrian Brody.
Adrian Brody post-Oscar, and he is just emoting the fuck out of this breakup.
He's just like it's so, and because it's just a YouTube clip, like there's no exposition, but he says something and then she's like, this is the last time I'm ever gonna sing for you. And then she starts singing the song and she's incredible. And then she starts weeping while looking at Adrian Brody. And it was too much for me. I was like, you don't need to cry over him.
Yeah, great news. You're Beyonce.
You're Beyonce, and he's Adrian Brody.
I mean, her version shows up first whenever I did any searches on Amazon or Google. You'd be like, I'd rather go blind. Beyonce. Wait, no, there's someone else.
This is a credit to Etta James. I think they're pretty much equal. When you have Beyonce doing a cover, and I think the original is still better, that says a lot about how good the song is and how it's just typically I think breakup songs are in that kind of category of songs where it's just okay, we're doing this now. The singer has feelings, but this is such a really poetic, beautiful song that doesn't I don't know. It's really good, and the lyrics are wonderful.
I never heard the Beyonce version. Now I kind of want to.
It's from a movie.
I really want to. Yeah,
it's good.
It's from a movie that nobody saw.
Oh yeah.
Etta James has this really effortless ache in her voice. That's just really nice. And it's the same thing when she sings At Last, I think is probably the song that everybody knows by her. And it's just sort of the same, where it's just it just feels so effortless and there's so much happening.
She reminds me
it's
of
just
Billie
really wonderful.
Holiday that way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of just all of your feelings are in all of your songs.
Mm-hmm.
In the best possible way.
Yes.
I feel sad listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
Not a happy song.
It's like a I don't know, warm melancholy.
I just emoted when listening to this song. I wasn't even sure quite what the emotion was.
Right.
It was just I too have feelings, Etta James. I too have feelings.
Thank you, Etta.
Yeah.
I Not Robot. Song good.
Wow.
I give the song 4.7 henges.
4.3.
3.8, only because I find the song itself kind of not memorable.
4.5.
All right, that is I'd Rather Go Blind by Etta James. And now it's time for the television show, which is Saturday Night Live.
It's Saturday Night Live with Fred Armisen, Rachel Gretsch, Tina Fey.
Saturday Night Live is a sketch comedy show that started in 1975. It was created because Johnny Carson was tired of having all of his reruns air on the weekend, and he wanted to have actual breaks and time off. So he said, you can't do that anymore. Put my reruns during the actual weekdays so I could take time off. And NBC went, fuck, we should probably put something on there, and entrusted a Canadian producer named Lorne Michaels to just make a thing. And what resulted is one of the longest running American comedy institutions.
Is it the longest running television? I mean,
no,
what?
Johnny Carson was on the Tonight Show, so the Tonight Show still going on.
Sure, that's fair. But I mean, and I guess you can't really track like, obviously, like, the hosts change, though. I don't know, like, SNL feels much more consistent in a weird way, just because, I mean, Lorne Michaels is Lorne Michaels the longest serving, like, single director? Producer or whatever.
He was not around from 1980 to 1985. That was when it was run for a few months by a woman whose name I forget right now, and then it was run by a studio executive named Dick Ebersol. I know a lot about this show.
No.
I'm on my second reread of the book Live from New York, which is one of the best books about pop culture ever, which is an oral history of essentially everyone involved in the show.
Which is like everyone that's ever been involved in American comedy.
Yes, if they're alive and they're not named Eddie Murphy, they're in this book. Eddie Murphy doesn't like to look back at this time very much. He was very good in the show. Anywho, Saturday Night Live. It began with an incredible 7 performers: Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Garrett Morris, Jane Curtin, Lorraine Newman, and Gilda Radner, who
pretty freaking amazing.
Were absolutely amazing team. Chevy Chase left after season 1, replaced by a guy named Bill Murray, and I know he went nowhere. And for 5 years, it was just one of the something that was just not at all anything on TV. It was a show that was counterculture. It was controversial, sometimes offensive, offensive on purpose. The show will later become offensive by accident. And
it was offensive on accident in the 70s. Like, I mean, there's just the show makes a lot of
going on.
It's just a lot.
It was a show that has endured throughout the years, despite the fact that sometimes, arguably, maybe it shouldn't have.
Yes.
Because did you know that Randy Quaid was on the show? He was, alongside Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah, that was a thing that I was surprised by.
Very weird season, and that was actually a Lorne Michaels season. And yet, as a show that literally writes all his sketches on Tuesday to be performed on Saturday, it has created an insane number of comedians that ruled the box office and pop culture. I mean, obviously, the people I mentioned, Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler, Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler,
Andy Samberg. Pick your Kristen Wiig. I mean, even the modern ones are...
Even the worst years of the show still had, Eddie Murphy or John Lovitz or...
Joan Cusack. Again,
that was a weird year.
I know, but I don't care. She was on the show.
She was. Alongside Robert Downey Jr. Kent season 11 was a very weird season. It is a show that had a weird number of sketches even be made into movies, things that have stayed within the pop culture. Even today, I look at websites like Vox that is confused, almost complains that whenever they do a small little piece about whether or not Matt Damon should have been playing Brett Kavanaugh on SNL, that gets the most hits. Yeah. It is a show that is hysterically uneven as much as it is actually hysterical. And I've seen so much of it. And what are you guys' relationships with Saturday Night Live?
Can I make my sports metaphor?
Sure.
So I've watched a lot of Saturday Night Live through my life. I mean, because I'm, culturally literate. And also, I've watched a bunch while we were building up to this show. And what I concluded was, look, ranking Saturday Night Live is like ranking the concept of baseball. The whole sport of baseball. Saturday Night Live encapsulates American comedy from 1975 to now. I have my own opinion on what the actual rating of that should be, but there's ups, there's downs. There's years where your team is really good and you're like, this is awesome, and there's years where you get to the third game and you go, oh, we're done with this season. I'll tune back in next year. And every year there's some game that is unexpectedly phenomenal and somebody does something crazy and you're like, oh, this is why I watched this stupid thing. And I think that it makes it hard because SNL is so a portrait of the culture that it's a part of in all of the good ways and all of the terrible ways. I mean, in the 70s and the 80s, it's a portrait of the counterculture and everything that comes along with that. Like, hey, remember that time that we thought that Al Franken could be a senator and definitely didn't have any, like, terribly embarrassing photos in his past because of misogyny in the 70s and 80s? And then he did. I mean, like, it's like, of course he did. It was, SNL is the late 70s and early 80s. And you know, I mean, like, it is of its time in all of the worst ways and all of the best ways.
And weirdly, all of the times.
Yes, and of all of the times. When it's good, it's amazing. When it's crappy, it's real bad.
And weirdly, that happens every episode.
Yes,
every episode.
In every episode, yeah.
I've only seen a handful of episodes where every single sketch and musical act was great, which is a weird thing to say for a television show where you have to go scene by scene of like, ooh, or yeah.
Honestly, I haven't seen a lot of episodes where every sketch and musical number are good. Like, there's a stinker pretty much every episode, even the ones where like everything's firing on all cylinders. Like, you just can't do it.
I think that's what's hard for me about Saturday Night Live is I realized when I was watching episodes that I have very rarely seen an entire episode of
Right.
SNL. Like, what I see is like the things that pass through like the social media filter, and it's like, here's Andy Samberg and Shia LaBeouf and Bill Hader shooting each other to what you say. I love that sketch.
That's an
by the way.
amazing sketch.
One
So
of the
funny.
great modern SNL sketches.
Literally. But then also like, so I think when I tried to watch like some different episodes from different times. And the thing is that I think SNL is like literally the perfect mirror of who we are as a country and a people at the time it is made, which means that it ages like worse than like that dude in Indiana Jones who like drinks that cup in the
It's so
Holy
true.
Grail. Like
Okay,
it's
you just
It's so true.
it's literally painful to watch. Like
when you said that, I thought you were referring to the entire movie of Temple of Doom. Not
Yeah, I
well.
was about to say you were
That's
so
really
wrong.
funny.
no.
No, the dude in Last
No,
Crusade who ages really
I
fast.
got it.
That's the
They were brilliant. I just assumed it was going to like, you know, that weirdly racist second film in the franchise.
I was on JC's my
I mean,
don't know
that
where you guys
too.
were at.
That too. I mean, like, I texted Austin while this was happening, but I watched this random episode I watched the season finale of season 33, which was 2008, and you have them bring on John McCain to be a player. You have Fred Armisen in blackface. You have Daryl Hammond in blackface. And it's just so much shit that's just, like, we should just know better.
And then
it's
then
like,
Barack Obama gets elected, and suddenly SNL figures out that they shouldn't have a person in blackface, and
Right.
and like stops doing that because
Wait,
hey, we have a black.
no.
I don't think
Armisen
they
does
stopped.
it for a long time.
No, but not like the whole time.
I would say 6 of the 8 years.
Not by no.
Jay
Not-
Farrow.
He doesn't do that. He doesn't do the 2012 campaign.
Jay Farrow replaces him years later.
Yeah, in the 2012 campaign, I think. I think the
I'll look
Romney
it up.
sketches are with an actual black person.
I think that's why it's hard for me sometimes to really be like, oh, like SNL was doing something really cutting edge, because a lot of their controversial things were not really, I don't think they really work, because you can't really like, you can't poke fun at the dynamics of race in America when you only have white cast members. Like, you can't. Like, it doesn't work. You can't do those things when you like actually cannot walk the walk yourself.
No.
And you're making your one person of color on your cast be every single race, because
That's
you cannot hire other people. Like, and that's a thing that continues like throughout SNL history.
So, yeah, I agree.
I just watched one this morning, starring Russell Brand, and Armisen was still playing as of 2011.
Ooh, that's rough.
which is still not.
I would say like race is probably like the Achilles heel of SNL, which is interesting to me because gender isn't like gender from the beginning. They have a cast that is talking about gender politics. And I mean, like, even, like, the famous joke, which my dad was a big fan of unironically when I was a child, which was a problem of, like, Jane, you ignorant slut, right? Like, I mean, when you're in the late 70s and early 80s, the joke of, like, a woman hosting Weekend Update, you know, like a news show, and the guy just, like, saying what he actually thinks, which is, Jane, you ignorant slut, like, that's funny. That's really funny in the world that they're in. I mean, honestly, it's funny now. It doesn't make it acceptable, but like I do at least get that joke.
Well, and that scene is just so good because Jane Curtin is, whereas that is the one that's like on the t-shirts and whatnot. She is doing equal amount of zingers. It's a crosstalk like parody, and she like.
She's actually way funnier, and and that's all he's got is Jane, you ignorant slut.
Dan, times change, and so does the nature of relationships. People are reluctant to get married these days, and looking at divorce statistics, who can blame them? But the lack of a piece of paper does not necessarily mean the lack of a total commitment. A woman in this modern-day relationship may well give up all her own personal pursuits, as Michelle Marvin claims she did, to give her full support to her man's career. And Michelle Marvin is just asking that the courts recognize that reality. Dan, there's an old saying. Behind every successful man, there's a woman, a loving, giving, caring woman. But you wouldn't know about that, Dan, because there's no old saying about what's behind a miserable failure.
Jane, you ignorant slut. Bagged up, dried up, slunk meat like you and Michelle Triola know the rules. If you want a contract, sign on the dotted line. Oh, but let's all shed a tear for poor Michelle Triola. There was only testimony that she had sexual intercourse over 40 times with another man while living with actor Lee Marvin. But I suppose that sort of fashionable promiscuity means nothing to someone like you, Jane, who hops from bed to bed with the frequency of a cheap ham radio. But hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and Michelle Triola, like a screeching, squealing, rapacious swamp sow, is after actor Lee Marvin's last $3 million. I guess what you and Michelle are saying is that when you're on your backs, the meter is running. Well, please spare us, gals, and tell us the rates at the top. Then we can choose which two-bit tarts and bargain basement sluts to shack up with.
That's the news. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Race sucks on SNL. Like they just like it really is a problem. It's a problem that they consistently failed to address when called on it. Like I mean, there's no excuse for doing blackface in 2008. Like what the hell, guys? Like I mean, even just like 10 years later, you look back and it's like no one else was making that mistake in 2008. Like that's just you guys not finding the amazing black talent that was out there in 2008, and instead a lot of them went different directions and like didn't go through SNL and found their way to success anyway. And so
it was even funny because Damon Wayans was fired from the show in a really weird moment that's too long to explain, and his run was pretty unimpressive. I mean, like I saw a few episodes and he like plays a crack dealer in the first episode, like a pimp in another episode, and of course then he became a superstar with In Living Color, which was a very much a counterpoint to Saturday Night Live. And their one, the flip side of SNL, their one token white guy was the guy who auditioned for SNL and didn't get it, Jim Carrey.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me too because like the way SNL works and like its collaborative process is like I remember, so Jane Curtin, I feel like is a really good example of this because she's so talented and so good. And the stories about how they treated her on that set are fucking horrendous. Yeah. Like, and it's hard for me. It's just, I have a hard time with this anyway, forever, is being like, you want to make these jokes about how like, about gender politics. And then you literally like take 50 years, not 50 years, I don't know how many years it is,
40.
to have 45 to have a head writer who's female, still struggling immensely with having cast members of color. Like, it's really hard for me to watch SNL as like a whole. It's easier, I think, when it's like, oh, here, watch this digital short that Andy Samberg made. But to like watch it as a show and commit to keep watching it as a show is like something that I like. It's just hard because it's just like I
mean,
don't.
Like, and this is like I was going to make this speech when I henged it, but it's like henging it is like henging the concept of American comedy between 1975 and now. Do I think in general, like in average, American comedy was like a good thing for the world if you average everything out between 1975 and now? Probably. But there's a hell of a lot of bumps in the road in the middle that make it very, very hard to make that statement definitively. Like, it's such a mess. And at the same time, I don't want SNL to ever go off the air. My feeling is like, I think it's great that we have this like little crappy, mediocre Saturday night stage where we reflect pretty much, unfortunately, exactly who we are, and it doesn't always age well. Sometimes we hit something brilliant. Just like stupid stuff recently, but like Black Jeopardy is a friggin' brilliant sketch.
Which is made by one of their head writers, who is Michael Che.
Yeah.
Who's
Michael Che's fucking hilarious.
A black comedian who was much better on The Daily Show. But
I love Michael Che. I mean, you don't like him because you don't like him on Weekend Update. I think Michael Che is hilarious.
Oh, he's good on Weekend Update. It's his co-host.
Whatever.
And
Michael Che is wonderful.
Was he the one that was on Daily Show for like 3 months or something?
Yeah, because the SNL poached him.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, on SNL.
His last episode of Daily Show was so funny because John Oliver had left 1 month prior, and they did this whole thing where like Jon Stewart and John Oliver wrote his like final like monologue thing, and then he scrapped it live and played like a tribute to John Oliver, and like he cried. So they did a parody of that 1 month later with Michael Che, and they showed his like 2 sketches he was in, and it was really funny.
We hardly used you.
I mean,
that's funny.
And at the same time, SNL also has some stuff that is totally apolitical and not important. But like, I mean, look, I will say, a couple years ago, David S. Pumpkins came out. That fucking Tom Cruise stupid elevator video. Hanks. That's what I meant. Tom Hanks. That fucking Tom Hanks stupid elevator video, which is the funniest shit I've ever seen. And like, and like, it's like, those things exist. They could definitely exist elsewhere. Don't get me wrong. Great comedy like that is not like politically, that's not like a thing, happens everywhere. But like the place that it gets to be on TV is SNL in a lot of ways.
Yeah, as a platform, it's like it feels important. It's like if you want me to henge Leslie Jones, like I'm gonna henge high or like a specific sketch. If it's the concept of it, or it's like, how do you feel about this season? Like it's so wildly and horribly inconsistent.
It really is like, how do you henge modern American comedy?
Yeah.
And it's funny because like, the AV Club, I don't know if they still do it. I kind of really read the AV Club anymore. But like they would actually like give a grade per sketch.
Oh yeah.
And like understand like, and once again, it's like a C+ of the show.
Yeah. Todd Vanderwerf for years gave a like play-by-play weekly, and like it's so funny reading just the blurbs of like, it's just a bunch of like, and their mediocre show, and their shitty show, and this is terrible. And then you'd hit one every season that was like, Zach Galifianakis is a friggin' amazing SNL host. This worked on all cylinders. This is a great hour of television.
Well, I think like, I mean, SNL said like a lot of negative things about a completely bizarre 44-year-old show. But there is something so enduring about like, there's always been someone good in the cast. There's not been a single year when there is zero like excellent players. So I was watching one this day, just a random one on Hulu, and Russell Brand was hosting. And I find Russell Brand's,
I love him.
I do find him to be a very funny person, and his monologue was like solid. And most of his sketches were pretty darn dumb. But when you have him and Bill Hader committing to really, really on the paper stupid sketches much like the bad episodes of Doctor Who, thank God the Doctor can still act.
Yeah.
Because that is a benefit of like the best sketch of his episode was just the idea that Russell Brand was a king who's just an absolutely horrible person who berates and kills off the family of his chef, and he just keeps turning to his taster, going like, "You got this, right?" And he just keeps insulting the chef more and more, and watching the chef pour poison into the soup.
Wait, that's a really good sketch idea.
It's 5 minutes long.
Yeah, I mean, which is a bummer, but like...
But you have, Bill Hader losing his mind as the murderous chef. Russell Brand playing the parody of every kind of like English king, and Taron Killam worried about his life. And it's a dumb sketch, but those 3 actors are talented. And I mean, we're proving right now, like I think it's... Someone once wrote that like, you rarely have the writers at the top of their game and the actors at the top of the game. I think we're right now in a stronger acting field than a writing field in season 44. But Kate McKinnon can save like a great sketch.
I love her. She can be in anything ever that she ever wants to be in, and I will love her. But I also think, like, I mean, when you go back to the very beginning of SNL, like, SNL is like an encapsulation of the 70s counterculture with all of the wonder of the 70s counterculture and all of the, like, complete shittiness of the 70s counterculture and the misogyny and everything that's terrible about it. I mean, SNL is, for better or for worse, SNL is us. It is certainly like mainstream liberal comedy culture. And for those of us who are invested in that, like, I don't think we can seriously look at SNL and say, I'm not a part of that. Like,
yeah,
what
totally.
that is.
Well, I want to end this segment on us all thinking about kind of our favorite cast members, sketches, and hosts. But first, because we are a show that never leaves any plot thread dangling like 100 episodes of mythology, we're going to go back to last episode where Pedro said he hadn't seen the cowbell sketch, and we're going to catch up on this.
Oh, yeah.
Pedro,
Yes.
Did you watch the cowbell sketch?
I have.
What'd you think?
Loved it.
Cool. All right, now we have to think about our favorite hosts.
Oh, man, that's
but
rough.
Pedro, what's your relationship with SNL?
I've seen maybe a couple episodes, all of which I don't remember very well.
Hard.
You showed me a few sketches. The Pumpkins one is great.
David S. Pumpkins is one of the best things they've done recently. It's so stupid.
That was absolutely hilarious. What else? What about all those songs? Like Dick in the Box, all that. Was that?
That's SNL.
Okay,
That's
I remember those. That was, 2008? Right around
somewhere
when we
around
went to
10,
college?
maybe, yeah.
That really is one of the biggest contributions to... Because like they've always had film segments. Because like even in the very beginning, you get like... I think the funniest film sketch they ever did back in like 75 was... it was a car commercial parody. Because they used to be just like really like straight-laced commercial parodies to make you think that like it was a commercial between sketches. And they had one where Dan Aykroyd played a rabbi doing a circumcision in the back of a car. Just that smooth of a drive. It's the funniest thing.
We went to this the touring SNL museum exhibit, and it really cracked me up because Dick in a Box is apparently something that has been settled on as SNL like history now. And so there were all of these montages where they like faded the colors to black and white, and it'd be like Steve Martin's like, Arrows, King Tut, and then like, I don't know, like, the other like great SNL, and then like, oh, also Dick in a Box. Like, that's a thing that's in here now.
I will say that even though it's not as good as Dick in a Box, their follow-up song, these characters singing Mother Lover with National Treasure Patricia Clarkson and Susan Sarandon.
There you go.
Is a couple degrees stupider, which is amazing considering the began with Dick in a Box.
But, yeah, these are all Lonely Island?
Well, Lonely Island worked for SNL, and essentially one of the biggest contributions in the whole history of the show is the idea that like they begged Lorne Michaels to basically do these digital sketches. I mean, basically give us the cheapest cameras we're going to do that we don't need like a full crew for, and we're going to make some really silly stuff. And it began with
it really
the song.
Revitalized SNL in a lot of ways.
And it was right when like, YouTube was like starting off. In fact, I remember like
that's why we watched all of it. That's how we could watch all of it.
Yeah, and like I remember like it was even the first one that really launched it all was Lazy Sunday. and where Andy Samberg and Chris Parnell are really excited about going to see the Chronicles of Narnia.
What cool Narnia?
Oh my god, so classic.
I remember I even got that was a free iTunes download, the video, because there wasn't YouTube yet. So I had it on my iPod, whatever ancient thing that was
oh
10
my
years
god,
ago.
yes.
I remember that iPod.
Mine specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, Billy, Cannonball.
Our friendship's weird.
Anyway.
But just looking back, you got the most obvious, perfect host. Steve Martin and Tom Hanks are that good and have been there since the 70s and 80s.
I would honestly give Zach Galifianakis as a recent host.
Mm-hmm.
His episodes are all good.
Mm-hmm.
They really are.
I would say I watched the Richard Pryor episode because it was on Hulu, and his monologue is the best opening monologue I've ever seen.
I think similarly, Steve Martin in season 1, I think it's season 1, 2, Steve Martin, his opening monologue is one of those weird things where it's actually really clean. It's a lot of jokes about magic. It's a lot of just straight comedy stuff, and it is the funniest shit I have ever seen.
Well, it's this weird thing because the very first host ever is Carlin, and with Carlin, Martin, Pryor, and only recently a few examples, I think Aziz Ansari, where they actually wrote the monologues themselves.
Yeah.
They're just stand-up comedians who just did new material that day.
Mm-hmm.
I think Louis C.K. did.
Wah, wah, wah.
I think Richard Pryor did also. I was reading that you told me that he brought in his own writers, and that's not something that they did very often.
Well, and then when former cast members come back, they very much join the full week writing staff, and in that way, they don't write their own stuff, but they they're much more a part of.
Well, hosts are always
happening.
Invited to, and again, I'm in the middle of rereading this book, and they said the host that always is the most involved in the writing has actually been Tom Hanks, where he's one of the few hosts who actually stays up with them till 3 a.m. on Tuesday night to help write sketches himself.
But also, I know, when Kristen Wiig comes back to the show, right? She former cast members just slot right in to the whole thing.
And the best episode this season of the 3 episodes I've aired this season so far, Seth Meyers was the strongest.
He's amazing. Yeah, Seth Meyers is really funny.
And but I think the one of the rare episodes where I think every single thing was funny, and I think it's basically just a perfect episode, is the Donald Glover episode from 2018.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because not only you have Donald Glover, who is one of the most talented people on the planet right now,
that's right.
Going back to his roots of sketch comedy and doing the broadest things. Then he also did both musical numbers, which had super elaborate dance sequences that he had to do the entire thing of, including another rendition of This Is America.
It's freaking amazing.
He's too talented. And another kind of highlight episode.
He probably made a deal with the devil. It's okay.
Another recent one that was pretty much great across the board. Another one where definitely the host wrote his own monologue was Dave Chappelle right after the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
Days after.
That's an awesome episode. And that's what SNL is for when it's good, right? They do that stuff. I mean, I know you were going to ask us to nominate our favorite sketches, but I'll just say I was going to cheat and say all of the times they've actually nailed a political figure. Tina Fey as Sarah Palin, Kate McKinnon, Amy Poehler and then Kate McKinnon, Hillary Clinton, Melissa McCarthy's Sean Spicer, which was a recent one that I had forgotten, but was friggin'
that's a perfect sketch.
And probably the first great satire of the Trump administration, right? When we're all
because Baldwin's Trump's not that good.
Yeah, when we're all in a mess about it, it's suddenly Melissa McCarthy shows up to be and now I'm Sean Spicer and this is the best thing you've ever seen.
I think because Spicer's tenure was just both sides of the aisle knew that was stupid.
Well,
so it was easy to us all go to have this strange looking man scream that the audience of the inauguration is bigger than.
Well, and I promise you, if you go back and watch Sarah Palin's speeches, you will be amazed because you will not recognize her because the way you remember Sarah Palin is Tina Fey's Sarah Palin from SNL. There was this weird, she was very, very close to the real Sarah Palin, but then added this, additional satire and like, I mean, it changes politics. It really does. Like, it matters.
And there were a few that also did. I mean, I think Chevy Chase, Gerald Ford is legendary.
Go all the way back.
Will Ferrell's George W. Bush.
So good.
And Dana Carvey's George W. Bush.
Also,
are essential.
who is it that does James Carville?
Bill Hader.
Yeah, and he's freaking amazing. Bill Hader's James Carville is the best.
That actually isn't SNL. That's a documentary now.
I don't care. He was on an SNL episode I just watched.
Did he do it as well? He did both?
Yeah,
Awesome.
he's in a bunch of SNLs.
Cool.
He comes on Weekend Update all the time.
Yeah, I do not like. I feel like SNL, when they actually bring political figures on, is like, that's a no for
It's
me.
a bummer.
Yeah, but I did like. I forgot about Melissa McCarthy as Sean Spicer. That is probably the best one. Can I tell you my favorite? You know who is a really good host for me? I haven't watched this episode, but I remember really liking it. Do you remember when Peyton Manning was on SNL?
Peyton Manning is...
yeah, it's great.
Shout out to all my family listening. Sorry for all the swear words. And also Haiti, Indiana for like a minute earlier.
Just me. Sorry.
Oh, no, me too. It's fine.
Peyton Manning, like, they often bring on sports figures. I think only a few sports figures have been, like, really good.
John Montana episode is also excellent.
LeBron James is pretty funny, but none of them have been as good as Peyton Manning. I might have
Peyton Manning was so good on SNL.
He is so fun. Like, even when they did the major overblown 40th anniversary live thing that was a mess 4 years ago, he was on stage. Like, they brought back, like, the classic hosts. Alec Baldwin, Steve Martin, like Martin Short, and Peyton Manning's on stage like the classic.
That's really ridiculous.
He is so funny. His monologue was so funny. I read some critic that said, like, why doesn't he have an ABC sitcom by now? Like, that should be the easiest transition.
Thank God he doesn't.
Guess he has to play football.
I forgot he hasn't retired yet.
Yeah,
Wait, he hasn't?
No.
I thought he stopped.
We switched teams.
Both still
Well, I know he switched teams from the Colts, but I thought, like, after he won his second Super Bowl, like, in a row or something, he was like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. All right.
Mostly when your brain's been hit that many times, you get into a repetitive cycle. Sorry.
Other shout-outs are just, like, obviously, like, awesome, famous ones. I do think Wayne's World's really funny.
Oh, it's great.
Those sketches are just, like, because they're just so weirdly sincere. Phil Hartman's one of the funniest people on the planet and died way too soon because of
so much
murder.
Well, yeah.
The original cast is just insanely good.
Gilda Radner. Is like, you cannot. She's the best. She and Jane Curtin, but like Gilda Radner is just like incredible. I just like stopped. I got really frustrated watching SNL.
Fair.
I think just in general, this catalog of things we had to review this week, I did not find a lot of joy
It was
in
a lot,
any of
yeah.
them. And I was like, fuck this. And then I just watched a bunch of Gilda Radner compilations and her yelling about like being Rosanna Dana and
Amazing
yelling.
Character.
It's just literally perfect. Like, there's nothing more perfect.
Well, she's just so angry about the uproar about violence in the media.
Yeah.
She's okay with violence in the media. They're great musical instruments.
Mm-hmm. That part is so good too.
I mean,
What's your favorite digital short? Because I feel like that's in its own category.
That is a new.
The digital. Oh, I don't even know if I have. I don't know what the options would be.
Well, I mean, it's basically all
Like any of those
Lonely
songs
Island.
or like.
Oh, I mean, what's it called? It's not called Creep Show.
Jizz in My Pants.
What's the one about?
Jizz in My Pants is
What's the one about the dudes who creep on people?
the creep. What do you mean?
Yeah, the creep.
Gonna do the creep.
Gonna do
Just
the
like
creep
that.
is the best thing ever.
I'm on a Boat is that good?
I'm on a boat is very good.
Like a boss.
No, but the
Like
creep,
a Boss is a little too.
the creep is one of those ones that is prescient about a cultural phenomenon that I enjoy very, very much.
It's just so funny, the idea that like they had Richard Pryor's episode was on a 3-second delay because I didn't trust him to like not swear, and then cut 40 years later and there's literally a song called Jizz in My Pants that is super well produced.
Oh yeah.
There is, okay, this is like a hot take, or it's an unpopular take. There's a Lonely Island sketch or like song, that features Michael Bolton.
Yes.
And Michael Bolton keeps singing about Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, and then he sings about like Aaron Brockovich and Scarface.
Yes.
And there's just this part in the song where Michael Bolton is just singing his heart out about Scarface. And Andy Samberg is in the bathroom and in the back room, and he just goes, "Take it home." And every time I hear it,
It's very important.
I laugh until I cry. Like, it's so fucking funny.
And all of this is why, like, SNL, which is a thing that at various times in its history deserves like 0 or negative 1 or more stars.
Literally.
Like,
It's
but
like,
it's,
oh.
But it's like, but you can't hate it because it's so many things.
So Saturday Night Live, I will say, is the most important and uneven 4.2 of all time.
I will say that, I grade a little bit on a curve where I think I consider my 3.5 to be an average score. Like, I use my zeros for like my like true like negative terrible. And so that's average. And I will rate SNL the same way I rate, the world between 1975 and 2018, which is like
B minus.
Yeah, like no. Oh no, buddy, not a B minus. C plus. We're at a 3.8, but like we're not like it could get to a 4.0. It's just not there yet.
So
3.8.
Wait, isn't a 3.8 a B minus?
No, a 4 out of 5 is an 80.
I'm just going off of the 4.0 scale.
No, none of that.
Oh.
A 4 out of 5 is an 80%.
Okay.
So a 3.5 is 75%. A 3.8 is like, like you tried towards that B minus, you just didn't get there.
I started my week at like a 3.8, especially watching some shitty episodes, but now I'm 300 pages back into this book, and we actually like sat on the Wayne's World couch. I'm like, never mind, maybe I love this. Maybe this garbage show I love.
And
I watched someone say, I'm like, oh, this is a garbage show. JC, how do you henge it?
I think because thinking about it as a whole, like I would say a 3.5. That's what I'm going to go with.
That's fair.
Just average.
I just remember now the museum that we went through. I also forgot one of the best recurring sketches. Celebrity Jeopardy is that good?
Oh God, Celebrity! I mean, like Black Jeopardy, which is with who
really,
is that a Tom Hanks?
No, well, it's repeated many times. Kenan Thompson's always the host.
Most recent one with it's like an old white Trump dude.
Yeah, that's with Tom Hanks.
Yeah, that's the Tom Hanks. Black Jeopardy is one of the funniest things I've seen since the Trump administration started.
Yeah.
Highly recommended, JC, if you haven't seen it.
I have not seen it.
Oh, it's very good.
Anyway, Saturday Night Live. A bunch of random seasons are on Hulu, but of slightly abridged status, depending if they have the musical rights or not. You've seen it.
Yeah.
This week, we're going to be covering the 129th entries of all those lists, and unfortunately, the movie is once again a murderous child going through a really rough land.
Yep.
JC, what movie are we watching next week?
The Wizard of Oz?
Yep. That's what that is.
I was like, shit, I don't remember.
It's true. Now I want to write like a really bummer version of The Wizard of Oz.
It's called Return to Oz.
That's fair. And or Wicked. The album...
And or the version of the version with Zooey Deschanel in it. And Alan Cumming.
I didn't
Tin
watch
Man.
that. Tin Man.
Tin Man.
Ooh, that sounds bad.
It is. It's real bad.
The album is Caetano Veloso by Caetano Veloso.
The song is A Repeat Occurrence. Again, these are always fun. I Fall to Pieces by Patsy Cline.
A great song.
And the TV show is the science fiction, some consider a masterpiece. I don't even have to watch it. The Prisoner. The British one-season crazy-ass show. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it.
Cool.
So we'll be back next week. Until then, you can leave us a review on iTunes. You can go to theartmore.com, leave a comment there about your favorite SNL sketches or what you thought of, the sex album. While you're there, check out other podcasts, including Let's Take 5. Right now in the middle of our Pedro Almodovar 5. Tomorrow's episode is about the Oscar... What?
Did you say my name again?
I mean, yeah. Pedro.
With Almodovar at the end of it.
Oh, okay. My name was said a lot during this episode, okay? More than usual. I apologize.
It's true.
Tomorrow's episode is the Oscar-winning film All About My Mother. Also, Ad Absurdum is an amazing podcast where two lawyers talk about pop culture. Check out those episodes as well. Follow us on Twitter at the Immortals Pod. There's links to Adam Lord for all of our music. He makes the show sound good. We'll be back next week. My name is Austin.
I'm Sarah.
I'm JC.
I'm Pedro.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Later.